Good morning, afternoon, evening. I stand before you today to talk about something that terrifies me, something that for a long time I couldn't even bring myself to say out loud. It's the fear of divorce. When I first thought about talking to you today about my biggest fear, I felt a wave of resistance. I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to let myself be vulnerable, to say out loud that something so deeply personal, so deeply painful has such a hold on me. But then I realized that this fear, as terrifying as it is something that many of us share. It's a fear that hides behind closed doors, something we often don't talk about openly. It's the fear of divorce. I know how this might sound. Divorce is a common part of life, something that many people experience. But for me, it's more than just the end of a relationship. It's not just about the legal papers or the emotional fallout. It's the fear of losing connection, the fear of breaking something that, for years, felt like a promise. It's the fear of failing at something I thought was sacred, something that I thought would be the constant in my life. In some ways, this fear feels almost shameful to admit. It feels like a personal failing, like I haven't done enough to keep things together, like I've somehow fallen short. When I think about the possibility of divorce, I think about the loss of intimacy, the person who has shared the highs and lows, the little moments and the big milestones. And I realize just how much of myself I've tied to that relationship, how intertwined our lives have become. The thought of losing that is terrifying, but it's not just about the loss of a partner. It's also about the ripple effect that comes with it. It's the fear of how it will affect my children if I have them, or how it will change the lives of the people around me. The guilt of wondering whether I did everything I could, the constant question of whether I tried hard enough, if I gave enough of myself. These are the things I think about when I imagine a future where divorce might be a reality. I've realized that this fear doesn't just come from the idea of being alone or the fear of failure. It comes from something deeper, the desire for connection, for belonging, for love that lasts. At its core, divorce represents a fracture in that connection. It represents a moment where two people who once felt like they were meant to be together can no longer sustain what they built. That's a kind of loss that feels impossible to navigate. And yet, here I am, sharing it with you, because the truth is, this fear, no matter how uncomfortable, is real. And if I'm honest with myself, I know that facing it is the only way I'll find peace. Relationships are at the core of what it means to be human. From the moment we are born, we are wired for connection. We crave it, we need it, and it shapes the way we experience the world. It is in relationships, whether with family, friends, or a partner, that we find meaning, purpose, and a sense of belonging. These connections become the foundation upon which we build our lives. We share our joys, our sorrows, our dreams, and our fears with others, and in turn, we are seen, heard, and understood. It is in the moments of connection that we feel most alive, most ourselves. They are the glue that holds us together through the challenges and triumphs of life. Love is the deepest form of connection we seek. It is the bond that draws us together, the force that propels us forward, and the comfort that sustains us in times of hardship. When we fall in love, we're not just creating a partnership, we're weaving our lives together, building shared memories, and imagining a future side by side. It's in these moments of shared experiences that we discover who we are, who we can become, and what life truly has to offer. These connections provide a sense of stability and security, a reassurance that we are not alone in this vast, unpredictable world. But what happens when that connection begins to fray, when the love that once seemed unbreakable starts to unravel? Divorce is one of the most profound threats to the human experience of connection. It's not just the end of a marriage, it's the tearing apart of a life shared with someone. It's the breaking of that bond, the disruption of a future once imagined together. Divorce leaves a void, a space where once there was a shared identity, a partnership, a family unit. When divorce enters the picture, it feels like a betrayal of everything that was built. The memories, the traditions, the dreams for the future, they all feel like they've been shattered. There is an emotional toll that comes with losing that connection, one that reverberates far beyond the two individuals involved. It's not just about the couple, it's about the shared circle of family and friends, the community that held the relationship together. Divorce can leave a trail of heartbreak in its wake, a ripple effect that touches everyone involved. The loss of connection through divorce is devastating because it threatens the very essence of what makes life meaningful. It forces us to face the painful reality that sometimes, despite our best efforts, love isn't enough to hold two people together. The bond we once had is no longer there, and that leaves us questioning who we are without it and whether we can find that kind of connection again. It's a deep, unsettling loss, one that forces us to redefine our sense of self and our understanding of love. And yet, in the midst of this loss, we are reminded of just how powerful and essential human connection truly is. Divorce carries with it a heavy societal stigma, one that casts a long shadow over those who face it. We live in a culture that places immense value on the idea of lasting love, on the notion that marriage is a sacred bond that should endure through all trials. This belief, while beautiful in theory, creates unrealistic expectations and pressures on individuals and relationships. Society tells us that success in life is measured by our ability to hold our relationships together, to make them work, no matter the circumstances. When those relationships falter, when love fades or difficulties become insurmountable, divorce becomes a symbol of failure, both personal and public. This fear of failure is deeply ingrained in how we see ourselves. Relationships are often tied to our self-worth. We invest so much of ourselves in our partners, in our families, in our futures together, that when things don't go as planned, it feels like a personal defeat. It's easy to internalize this sense of failure, to believe that our inability to make a marriage work reflects something fundamentally wrong with us. We may start to question our value as a partner, as a person. If we couldn't hold our marriage together, what does that say about our ability to love, to commit, or to be enough for someone else? This fear is compounded by the judgments we fear from others, the whispers behind closed doors, the well-meaning but painful comments from family and friends, the societal gaze that scrutinizes those who've experienced divorce. All of these add layers of shame. It's not just about the end of a relationship. It feels like a public declaration of failure. It's an admission that we couldn't meet the expectations placed upon us by society, by our families, and even by ourselves. In a world where success is often measured by longevity and stability, divorce feels like a glaring mark of imperfection, a failure to fulfill a role that has been deeply romanticized. And yet the fear of failure isn't limited to the way others see us. It also strikes at the heart of how we see ourselves. We hold ourselves to impossibly high standards, and when we fail to meet them, it can feel devastating. Relationships are complex, and no one person is responsible for their success or failure. But when they end, the weight of responsibility often falls squarely on our shoulders. The fear of divorce becomes amplified by this sense of guilt, this internalized narrative that we didn't do enough, try hard enough, or fight long enough to keep things intact. The fear of failure in relationships runs deeper than just the end of a marriage. It's about confronting the reality that we are not perfect, that life doesn't always unfold the way we expect or hope, and that sometimes, despite our best efforts, things don't work out. It's a painful truth, but it's also an essential part of learning and growing. Divorce, in its own way, isn't just an ending, it's also a beginning, a chance to redefine ourselves, our needs, and our capacity for love. Yet, the fear of failure lingers, reminding us of just how vulnerable we are in a war. Often equates success with perfection. When I think about divorce, one of the first things that weighs heavily on my mind is the impact it would have on children. While it's easy to focus on the pain and loss experienced by the adults involved, the emotional toll on children is something that can be truly heart-wrenching. Children are often the innocent bystanders in these difficult situations, and the thought of how they might feel or how their lives might be affected brings a deep sense of anxiety. At the core of this concern is the stability that children rely on. As parents, we are the foundation of their world, the ones who offer them comfort, safety, and assurance. When that foundation begins to crack, when the family dynamic changes, it can shake their sense of security. Divorce can feel like an upheaval, one that forces children to navigate a new reality where their lives are split between two homes, two sets of rules, and two versions of what their family looks like. This transition can be disorienting, leaving them uncertain about their place in the world. They may struggle with feelings of confusion, fear, or sadness, and it's impossible not to worry about the long-term effects of these emotional shifts. One of the hardest things to accept is that no matter how much we may want to protect our children, there is no way to shield them entirely from the emotional fallout. They may feel torn between two parents, forced to choose sides, or they may internalize feelings of guilt, thinking that somehow they are the cause of the separation. These feelings of responsibility are often more pronounced in children than we realize, and they can affect their sense of self-worth and how they approach relationships in the future. The fear of children feeling abandoned or unloved is perhaps one of the most devastating parts of contemplating divorce. At the same time, I also recognize the importance of providing them with an environment where they can thrive, even if it means making difficult decisions. Sometimes staying in an unhappy or unhealthy marriage can be just as damaging to a child's well-being as divorce. The emotional tension, the lack of affection, the absence of mutual respect, these things don't go unnoticed by children. They feel the weight of unresolved conflict, and it can affect their ability to form healthy relationships and cope with their own emotions in the future. The complexity of this situation lies in wanting the best for our children while also acknowledging the hard reality that no decision is without its challenges. Divorce may bring about difficult changes, but staying in a relationship that no longer serves the well-being of the family can be just as harmful in the long run. The weight of wanting to do right by them, to protect them, and to ensure their happiness is overwhelming, and it only intensifies the fear and guilt surrounding the decision. It's a balance between the desire to shield them from hurt and the understanding that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to create an environment where they can grow, even if it's one that looks different from what we originally imagined. Love is often portrayed as something pure, effortless, and timeless. We're told that love is the ultimate goal, the pinnacle of human connection, and the one thing that will see us through all the ups and downs of life. But the reality of love is far more complex than that. Love is not always easy, and it certainly isn't linear. It isn't something that stays constant without effort or that can survive without deep commitment, communication, and trust. The complexities of love, with its ebbs and flows, are often the very things that create uncertainty, and it's this uncertainty that lies at the heart of the fear of divorce. In the beginning of a relationship, love feels effortless. It's passionate, exciting, and new. The connection is strong and everything feels right, but as time passes, reality sets in. The challenges of life, stress from work, personal struggles, changes in priorities begin to weigh on the relationship. In these moments, love isn't always enough to keep everything intact. Maintaining love requires constant work, open communication, understanding, vulnerability, and compromise. And yet, even with all these efforts, things can go wrong. Misunderstandings happen. Hurt feelings are inevitable. Resentment can build, and the emotional distance that forms between two people can be difficult to bridge. One of the biggest challenges in any relationship is maintaining trust. Trust is the foundation of any partnership, and once that foundation starts to crack, it can be incredibly difficult to rebuild. Without trust, love cannot thrive. And sometimes, even when both people are committed to making things work, the damage caused by broken trust can feel insurmountable. The fear of divorce often stems from this uncertainty: will trust be restored? Can love survive this challenge? Will the relationship ever be the same? What makes this fear even more intense is that relationships are never static. They grow and change over time, and sometimes those changes lead people down different paths. It's a terrifying thought that the person you once thought you would share your life with forever might not be the person you grow old with. The idea that love can evolve or fade is unsettling because it challenges everything we think we know about relationships and commitment. We want to believe that love is invincible, that once we find it, we found something unbreakable. But the truth is that love requires constant attention and care. And sometimes, despite our best efforts, it just doesn't work out. This uncertainty, the not knowing if love will endure or if the relationship will withstand the tests of time, is the heart of the fear of divorce. It's the fear of losing something that once felt certain, the fear of watching something you built together unravel. It's the fear that no matter how hard you try, you might not be able to fix what's broken. And that uncertainty, that sense of vulnerability, is one of the hardest parts of loving and being loved. Love is often portrayed as something pure, effortless, and timeless. We're told that love is the ultimate goal, the pinnacle of human connection, and the one thing that will see us through all the ups and downs of life. But the reality of love is far more complex than that. Love is not always easy, and it certainly isn't linear. It isn't something that stays constant without effort or that can survive without deep commitment, communication, and trust. The complexities of love, with its ebbs and flows, are often the very things that uncertainty. And it's this uncertainty that lies at the heart of the fear of divorce. In the beginning of a relationship, love feels effortless. It's passionate, exciting, and new. The connection is strong and everything feels right. But as time passes, reality sets in. The challenges of life, stress from work, personal struggles, changes in priorities begin to weigh on the relationship. In these moments, love isn't always enough to keep everything intact. Maintaining love requires constant work, open communication, understanding vulnerability, and compromise. And yet, even with all these efforts, things can go wrong. Misunderstandings happen. Hurt feelings are inevitable. Resentment can build, and the emotional distance that forms between two people can be difficult to bridge. One of the biggest challenges in any relationship is maintaining trust. Trust is the foundation of any partnership, and once that foundation starts to crack, it can be incredibly difficult to rebuild. Without trust, love cannot thrive. And sometimes, even when both people are committed to making things work, the damage caused by broken trust can feel insurmountable. The fear of divorce often stems from this uncertainty: will trust be restored? Can love survive this challenge? Will the relationship ever be the same? What makes this fear even more intense is that relationships are never static. They grow and change over time, and sometimes those changes lead people down different paths. It's a terrifying thought that the person you once thought you would share your life with forever might not be the person you grow old with. The idea that love can evolve or fade is unsettling because it challenges everything we think we know about relationships and commitment. We want to believe that love is invincible, that once we find it, we found something unbreakable. But the truth is that love requires constant attention and care, and sometimes, despite our best efforts, it just doesn't work out. This uncertainty, the not knowing if love will endure or if the relationship will withstand the test of time, is the heart of the fear of divorce. It's the fear of losing something that once felt certain, the fear of watching something you built together unravel. It's the fear that no matter how hard you try, you might not be able to fix what's broken. And that uncertainty, that sense of vulnerability, is one of the hardest parts of loving and being loved. When I think about the fear of divorce, one of the most daunting aspects that comes to mind is the fear of loneliness. It's not just about losing a partner, it's about losing a companion, a confidant, someone who has been a part of every facet of your life. Divorce means the end of the shared life you've built together, and with that comes the overwhelming sense of isolation. The person who once knew you better than anyone else, who shared your most intimate thoughts and experiences, is no longer there. The thought of that absence can feel like a vast emptiness that can't easily be filled. We often talk about the fear of being alone, but it's deeper than that. It's the loss of someone who has been a consistent presence in your life. This person has witnessed your growth, your struggles, and your joys. They've been there through milestones, family gatherings, quiet moments, and big decisions. They've been your sounding board, your emotional support, and the one person who truly understands your perspective. When that connection is severed, it's not just the absence of a relationship, it's the absence of shared history and understanding. It's as if a part of your identity is now missing, and that is a profoundly lonely experience. The fear of loneliness is also tied to the sense of vulnerability that comes with being on your own. For many people, a marriage or long-term partnership provides a sense of security and safety, not just emotionally, but in many other aspects of life, financially, socially, even practically. Losing that safety net is terrifying. It's a fear that goes beyond simply missing companionship. It's about facing a future where you're no longer anchored by someone who shares your life in its entirety. The weight of this fear can make it difficult to even imagine life after divorce, because it feels like the support system that has always been there will no longer exist. This fear isn't just about loneliness in the sense of being physically alone either. It's the emotional isolation that comes with divorce, the realization that you've lost the person who was your closest ally. You may feel like you no longer have someone to confide in, to lean on when times are tough. The idea of facing life's challenges without that companion can be overwhelming because you've grown accustomed to having that person by your side, offering perspective, guidance, and unconditional support. The emotional intimacy that was once there is suddenly gone, and the void it leaves behind can feel insurmountable. At its core, the fear of loneliness is a primal fear. We are social creatures wired to connect with others, to form bonds and relationships. Losing that bond, especially after years of sharing your life with someone, can feel like an existential loss. It's not just about missing the presence of a partner, it's about confronting the reality of navigating life without the person who once stood beside you through everything. It's a fear that many people avoid confronting because it touches on the deepest parts of who we are and how we connect with the world around us. In today's world, society often paints a very idealistic picture of relationships, one that creates immense pressure on individuals to conform to certain standards of success, happiness, and stability. From movies to social media to family expectations, we're constantly fed the narrative that relationships should be smooth, easy, and always moving forward. We see couples who appear to have it all together: perfect homes, beautiful children, successful careers, and an unbreakable bond. This picture of perfection becomes the standard, the bar we feel we should be striving for. But when we find ourselves struggling in our own relationships, when things aren't perfect, it can feel like we're failing not only our partners, but also society at large. This idealized image of love and marriage sets up unrealistic expectations. We're taught to believe that love is supposed to be effortless, that true love conquers all obstacles, and that a successful relationship is one where everything just falls into place. This narrative leaves little room for the complexity of human emotions, the challenges that come with everyday life, and the inevitable misunderstandings and conflicts that arise between partners. It doesn't account for the reality that love is something that takes work, vulnerability, and constant nurturing. It doesn't consider that sometimes, despite our best efforts, relationships can falter. And when that happens, we are left feeling as though we're falling short of what we're supposed to achieve. This pressure to conform to societal ideals can exacerbate the fear of divorce. It's not just about the end of a relationship, it's about the fear of failing in front of others, of being judged for not living up to the standards set by society. Divorce can feel like a public admission of failure, a sign that we couldn't measure up to the expectations placed on us by friends, family, and even the media. We fear being labeled as broken or incomplete, as though our worth is defined by whether or not we can maintain a picture-perfect relationship. The pressure to keep up appearances, to maintain the facade of happiness, can make the fear of divorce even more intense. It's not just a personal loss, it feels like a societal one as well. Moreover, cultural narratives around marriage often create a sense of shame for those who experience its dissolution. The notion that a marriage should last forever, that it's an immutable commitment, can make divorce feel like a betrayal of that ideal. People may fear how others will perceive them, worried about the stigma attached to starting over, to rebuilding their lives outside the framework of a traditional marriage. The societal expectation that we should have it all together further compounds the sense of inadequacy when things don't go as planned. It can feel like you're not only letting yourself down, but you're also letting down everyone who ever believed in the ideal of perfect love. Personal growth is often seen as an individual journey, something that each person must navigate on their own. But when it comes to relationships, personal growth plays a crucial role in sustaining a healthy and fulfilling connection with another person. The fear of divorce can be paralyzing because it forces us to confront the fact that we are constantly evolving, and so are our partners. Relationships are dynamic, they change over time, and so do the individuals within them. If we aren't actively growing, learning, and nurturing ourselves, we risk falling into patterns that stifle growth and ultimately strain the relationship. At its core, personal growth in a relationship means being self-aware, understanding our needs, and recognizing areas where we can improve. It means taking responsibility for our actions, our emotions, and the way we contribute to the dynamics of the relationship. The fear of divorce often arises from the feeling that we've reached an impasse, that we've hit a wall that seems insurmountable. But this fear can also serve as a wake-up call, reminding us that relationships are not static and neither are we. In order to sustain love, we must constantly evolve both as individuals and as partners. This can be a difficult realization because growth isn't always linear or comfortable. It requires vulnerability and the willingness to face the parts of ourselves that we might not want to confront. It means acknowledging our weaknesses, our mistakes, and our fears. For example, if we have communication issues or unresolved emotional baggage, those things don't just disappear with time. They require effort to address and work through. This is where the fear of divorce becomes a reflection of our own insecurities. It's not just about the potential end of a relationship. It's about the fear that we haven't done enough, that we haven't grown enough, or that we're not capable of changing in ways that will keep the relationship healthy. But the truth is, no relationship can thrive without both partners being willing to grow. Each person brings their own set of experiences, beliefs, and emotions into the partnership, and it's through mutual growth and understanding that we can navigate the complexities of love and life together. Relationships require ongoing attention and effort, and personal growth is a key ingredient in that effort. By continuing to work on ourselves emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually, we become better partners, better communicators, and better supporters. We learn how to navigate conflicts with compassion, how to meet our partner's needs without losing ourselves, and how to maintain a sense of individuality while being part of a couple. The fear of divorce, while unsettling, can also be an invitation to reflect on what we need to grow and change in order to sustain a healthy relationship. It's a reminder that we are always in the process of becoming, and so too is the relationship. Instead of seeing divorce as the end of a journey, we can view it as an opportunity for growth, whether it's the growth of the relationship itself or the personal growth that propels us to enter the next phase of our lives. It's a powerful reminder that, in the end, growth is the foundation of love and connection. And it's through nurturing ourselves that we can continue to nurture the relationships we hold dear. The fear of divorce is a powerful force that often lurks in the background of a relationship, creating a sense of unease and uncertainty. It's a fear that can paralyze us, making it difficult to move forward or make clear decisions. However, one of the most important lessons I've learned is that we cannot simply run from this fear. It is all too easy to try to suppress or avoid confronting it, but doing so only deepens the anxiety and makes it harder to find clarity. Acknowledging the fear, no matter how overwhelming, is the first step toward making empowered choices in our lives, whether that means working through challenges or, in some cases, choosing to let go for the sake of growth. When we face our fears, we allow ourselves the opportunity to understand them. Fear often arises from the unknown, from the idea that we cannot control what lies ahead. The fear of divorce is particularly intense because it represents an ending, a loss of something that was once central to our identity and vision of the future. But by acknowledging this fear, we take the power away from it. We stop allowing it to control our decisions and instead take control of the situation. When we sit with our fear, when we allow ourselves to truly feel it and understand its root, we give ourselves the opportunity to make conscious, thoughtful decisions about our next steps. This is not to say that facing the fear of divorce is easy. It's often uncomfortable, and it forces us to confront difficult truths about ourselves, our relationships, and the way we've been living. But it also brings clarity. Once we acknowledge the fear, we can begin to see things more clearly. Are we afraid of losing the person we love, or are we afraid of the unknown? Are we struggling because we're not communicating effectively, or are we holding on to a relationship that no longer aligns with who we are and where we're headed? By embracing the fear, we open the door to self-reflection and personal growth, which are essential for making empowered decisions. Moreover, facing this fear allows us to take responsibility for our own happiness and well-being. We stop blaming external circumstances and we recognize that we have the agency to shape our lives. This might mean choosing to work through the challenges, committing to growth, and putting in the effort to rebuild the connection. Or sometimes it means recognizing that letting go is the healthiest choice for both ourselves and our partners. The fear of divorce doesn't have to control us. It can be the catalyst for creating positive change in our lives. Ultimately, facing the fear head-on means embracing vulnerability and acknowledging that we are not in control of everything. It's about trusting ourselves enough to make the decisions that are best for our own growth, whether that means healing a relationship or moving on from it. By confronting our fears with honesty and courage, we empower ourselves to create a future that is true to who we are and to move forward with confidence, no matter what that looks like. As we come to the end of this reflection on the fear of divorce, it's important to remember that while this fear may be real, it doesn't define us. Divorce, with all of its complexities and emotional weight, is one of life's most challenging experiences. But it is not the end of our story. It does not determine our worth or our ability to love again, nor does it erase our capacity for connection, growth, or happiness. In fact, it can be a powerful reminder of our resilience and the strength that comes from embracing life's uncertainties. Divorce may be a painful chapter, but it is just that, a chapter. It is a moment in time, not the entirety of our lives. It doesn't take away the love we've experienced, the lessons we've learned, or the person we've become in the process. We are not failures because a relationship has ended. We are human beings who are navigating one of life's most difficult transitions. And in this vulnerability, there is strength. To face such a fear, to confront the possibility of loss, is an act of immense courage. It's a recognition that life doesn't always follow the path we expect, and yet we continue to move forward, to heal, to grow. The beauty of being human is our capacity to rebuild, to reinvent ourselves, and to continue opening our hearts to new possibilities. Divorce might close one door, but it opens others doors to new connections, new experiences, and deeper self-awareness. The act of loving, even after experiencing pain, is one of the most courageous things we can do. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to our ability to bounce back, to grow from our challenges, and to trust in the process of life. The fear of divorce may make us question our ability to love again, but I want to remind you that our capacity to love is infinite. It evolves, it deepens, and it takes on new forms over time. We may experience hardship, but we also discover strength we didn't know we had. We learn to set boundaries, to embrace our imperfections, and to build relationships that honor who we are in our truest, most authentic form. It's in the journey of facing our fears and vulnerability that we uncover the courage to love not just others, but ourselves. So while the fear of divorce may shake us, it should never diminish our belief in our worth or our ability to create meaningful, lasting connections. We are more than the relationships we've had. We are the people we are becoming. And in the face of uncertainty, there is always room for hope. Every step we take toward healing, every time we open our hearts again, is an act of strength. Life is unpredictable, but our resilience is unshakable. And in that resilience, we find our true power. In conclusion, the fear of divorce is a powerful, complex emotion that many of us face at some point in our lives. It challenges us to confront not only the end of a relationship, but also our own vulnerabilities, insecurities, and the uncertainty of the future. Yet, in acknowledging this fear and facing it head on, we open the door to growth, self-reflection, and empowered choices. While divorce may feel like a daunting and painful chapter, it does not define us. Our worth, our ability to love, and our capacity to form meaningful connections remain intact. Life's uncertainties, though unsettling, are also opportunities for resilience and reinvention. By embracing vulnerability and trusting in our own strength, we discover the courage to navigate whatever comes next, knowing that every challenge is a step toward healing, growth, and a future filled with hope. So I stand here today, not as someone who has it all figured out, but as someone who is learning to embrace the uncertainty, to believe in the possibility of new beginnings, and to trust that even in the darkest moments, there is always a way forward. Thank you.